So I'm here today to tell a fairy tale that I found on either the internet, read in a book, heard from someone else. Now, when I was younger, I really enjoyed fairy tales. Particularly, I enjoyed reading them. And so I've decided, now that I'm a little bit older, that I should record myself telling fairy tales that I know or that I've discovered. And I should put these videos on the internet for people to find and enjoy, maybe. I don't know. If you do like these videos, please let me know that I should do more. But if not, I'm still going to keep telling fairy tales. Anyway, so today's story that I've decided to tell is a Grimm's fairy tale. So it was recorded around the 1800s by two brothers going around their native German countryside and rescuing stories from extinction. So today's story is known as King Grisly-Beard. And I'm not too sure how else to introduce it, so I'm going to get right into telling it. I hope you enjoy. Once upon a time, there lived a king who had this gorgeous daughter. She was the most beautiful person that you could ever imagine, and she was a real person, yeah. That's how awesome it was. But there was one thing about her that made her a little bit less than perfect. She was really mean, stuck up, and just so rude to everyone she met. Or at least all the men that she met. Her father would host all these big parties, and he would invite all these men to come over, and so that they and his daughter could meet, and that maybe she could find someone that she liked, and you know, he would actually let her have input into her own marriage. But every single guy that she met, she was just so rude to him. She didn't even go behind their back. She said it straight to their face. She commented on their weight. She commented on their height. She commented on, like, their skin tone. And then there was one guy in particular who she was really rude to. And he had this big beard on his face. And that's kind of who the story is named after, King Grisly-Beard. You know, some girls are into beards, but apparently not her. And she was like, she wasn't interested in anything. So anyway, eventually her father was just tired of this behavior. It was a bad reflection on him, it was a bad reflection on her, and also it was just going to be difficult to build a long-lasting, not bond, but long-lasting connections between kingdoms. Anyway, so eventually he said, alright, fine, you know what? If there isn't a prince or a nobleman that's good enough for you, the next beggar I meet, I'm going to marry you to him. I guess he may have said this in front of the entire court, so I guess he was a little bit honor-bound to it now. And his daughter just at first brushed him off, because, I don't know, I guess she didn't really believe him. That is until a couple days passed, and this beggar actually comes to the castle. So there's this group of musicians, and they stop for the night and ask for like a place to stay and some money and some provisions for their long journey home. And so this king invites them in, and they sing for their supper. They play at dinner that night, and he's so impressed that he's just like, okay, so I feel like I should give you an extra reward. Is there anything that any of you would like? And so one of them steps up and says, I'd like to marry your daughter. Why anyone would want to do this when she's so mean, and I think she probably has a reputation for being mean, it's kind of crazy, but you know what? He takes on the challenge. And so the king just thinks, wow, this is a perfect opportunity. You can marry my daughter. You have my blessing. Have a happy marriage. He's probably a little bit happy to be rid of her. And at first, the princess is a little bit confused, in disbelief, and she tries crying and begging her father not to make her go with this beggar. And there's nothing that can be done. So the next day, they get it all finalized. And this princess is now the wife of a commoner. And either she's forced out of the castle or something, but she goes with her new commoner husband, And they pass through 3 different locations. The first one is this beautiful, amazing forest that she's just amazed by. And the second one is meadow and farmland, which she's just in awe of. And then the third one, they pass through this impressive city. And every single time she asks, who owns these places? They're so amazing. And each time her husband says, King Grisly-Beard owns these places. You know, you were stupid enough not to marry him, because all this could have been yours at some point. But no, you didn't marry him. And then eventually they come to their final destination, which is this little shack, and the princess is less than impressed. She asks, who the heck owns this shack? And her new husband says, excuse me? I own this shack, and now so do you. And so he also asks her to start up a fire and to maybe get some dinner going. It's kind of stupid that he doesn't do it himself, but he ends up actually having to because she doesn't know how to cook. And so it's not a very easy adjustment to married life. He tries to teach her how to do the house chores, but she's not very good at it. She messes up a bunch. And eventually, he says, okay, her husband says, all right, honey, so you're gonna have to get a job because we're running out of money, we don't have any food in the house, and we can't keep living like this. He might also just be a little bit tired of her and he wants to give her something to actually do. Well, the princess says, well, I don't know how to do anything. I don't really have that many useful skills. And so her new husband says, well, I'll go cut some reeds and I'll teach you how to weave baskets. Maybe you can do that. He tries, and it's not very good. She complains, and her fingers are just bloody and raw. And he's like, I don't want to put you through this. So he probably also doesn't want to hear her complaining. So he ends up buying some pots and pans and says, okay, now go sell these in the marketplace. Good luck. Go be a businesswoman. And so she does actually go out to the marketplace, and she does fairly well with selling these pots and pans. She's very beautiful, so everyone's kind of like, well, maybe she's a trustworthy person. So they'll come up to her and just buy her pots and pans. And it goes pretty well. Until one day, there's a drunken sailor on a horse. So one day she's set up in the corner of the market square, where all these people are passing by. And, you know, the corner store is actually often the best visibility, and the fair bit of traffic, if I remember correctly. And so, unfortunately, though, this drunken sailor bumps into the stall and just shakes off everything, and all of her pots and pans just clatter onto the ground. And she's like, oh, that's not good. So she's trying to fix the pots and pans and, like, put them back up on the shelf, but there's nothing that she can do because they're all just shattered on the ground. So eventually she just decides to go home and tell her husband what happened. And he doesn't get too mad about it. It's like, oh well, I mean, there's this guy and he just bumped off all my wares, but there's nothing that I can do. So she ends up getting a job in the palace kitchens. There she's relatively well off. I mean, now she can learn how to cook, now she can have plenty of food to bring home. So that is a pretty good arrangement. She becomes a very different person when she's married. I don't know if she's nicer, but I mean, she's less complaining, I suppose. But she becomes a harder worker, I guess. That's the most important thing, I guess. So one day, the king's eldest son is coming home to bring home his new wife, and well, the parade is passing by in a window below her, and so the ex-princess looks out the window and sees the pomp and circumstance of the carriage and the prince, and she just thinks, Man, if I had been a bit different, maybe this could have been my life. And so at the end of the day, she's going home with her basket full of food, and she ends up having to pass by this party that's happening in celebration of the prince and his new wife. Well, unfortunately, there she sees someone across the room who she doesn't want to see at all. It's King Grisly-Beard, and she's just hoping, please don't recognize me, please don't recognize me, please don't recognize me. And of course, he's coming over to her. And she's like, no, I don't want to do this. But he takes her by the hand, and they dance while she's holding this basket. And unfortunately, he spins her around so much that everything just falls onto the ground. And she's embarrassed because now she's trying to pick everything up so that way she can get out the door as fast as she can and head home. But King Grisly-Beard doesn't let her off so easily. So, yeah, she embarrassed him all those many weeks or months ago. And she's just, like, kind of terrified. She's not even saying anything. She's just scared now for her life, kind of. Well, not really for her life, but she's scared of King Grisly-Beard. She doesn't want to get embarrassed anymore than she already has. And he says, hey, don't worry. I'm not here to embarrass you. I'm actually here to enlighten you. So I'm actually your husband. All those months ago, I've been pranking you this entire time. You see, I disguised myself as a fiddle player, and I went to your castle, and I got your father's permission to marry you. And then I brought you home to that little shack in order to try and teach you how to cook and how to clean and some basic life skills. And I also taught you how to, or I tried to help you understand a little bit, how to be a little bit nicer and more polite, I suppose. Anyway, he tried to teach her a lesson, and in the end, he said, okay, well, now that you've learned your lesson and this prank's pretty much over, it's actually time to celebrate our marriage right. We're gonna have this huge celebration, and you're going to rise to a princess again. Woohoo! And so yeah, that's how the story ends. It ends on a good note, and she becomes royalty again. She went from a princess to pauper to queen. And she lived a better life. She was a better person, and she now learned some basic life skills. I think if there's one thing to learn from the story, it's that as many mistakes as you make, and sometimes you might not get second opportunities in life, as long as you can learn from your mistakes that you made originally, it still could be that you may get back onto a track that you originally wanted. You know, I mean, the princess never exactly learned from her mistakes, but she did change for maybe the better? I don't know. Let me know what you think of the story. Did you like it? Did you hate it? I know that there are some, like, I don't know, King Grisly-Beard didn't really need to do that. And maybe it made her a little bit subservient. But also, maybe it made her a little bit nicer that happened. So again, let me know what you think. If there are any stories that you know that might not necessarily be featured in Grimm's fairy tales, please let me know. I'd love to hear them. And yeah, subscribe if you want more, and please comment on this video. Anyway, I've decided that I can't really say goodbye. I'm terrible at goodbyes. So I've just decided to say hello another time.